Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to make some teriyaki meatballs and we're going to make a kind of a broccoli stir-fried rice and some homemade Rice Krispie treats. So kind of like a teriyaki meatball bowl. Be delicious. So let's start. I'm going to chop up some green onions to put into our meatballs, and then the rest will go into our kind of our stir fry. So I've got 3 good sized green onions here. And I'm gonna mince these. I almost said mince these up nice and small. This is gonna give a lovely onion flavor to the pork. And then we'll also add in some onion powder and some Japanese barbecue sauce for it, just to make a really delicious flavor. Okay. I'm going to go over here because, just slicing them doesn't get them quite small enough. So I'm going to really mince them up. That way you're not going to have any super huge pieces of green onions, but you're going to get a lot of it throughout our meatball. And this is just a great way to use ground pork. You could also use ground chicken or turkey with this. Those flavors will all work well. Okay. So we've got our green onions minced up here. Now let's start by making the base for our meatballs. We're gonna make a panade. So I've got 1 slice of kind of a soft bread, and we're gonna soak it in some cream until it soaks up all of it. You don't want it to be drenched where it's dripping everywhere, but enough to make it to where it's nice and soggy, because that's going to be the base of our panade. And then we're going to add in 1 egg because we're going to be using 1 pound of meat. Here we go. And I'm going to add in my minced green onions. Get green onions on my hands. And then we're going to add in some onion powder, about 1.5 teaspoons. This is also going to give it a lovely savory flavor for our teriyaki meatballs. We're going to add in a really light pinch of ginger, like 1/4 teaspoon. Or if you're going to use ginger paste, like 1/2 teaspoon. But it will add just a nice little kick in there. And we're going to add in about 1.5 teaspoons of garlic salt. So a couple good shakes. And we're going to use some Japanese barbecue sauce. We're just going to add in about 1 tablespoon. Okay. Now I'm going to go in here with my hand, and we're going to just kind of smush everything together to make a nice herby paste for our kind of teriyaki meatballs. There we go. And again, I'm going to just kind of make sure I've got all of that bread kind of dissolved into that egg and that cream. And this is our panade that is going to be the binder for our meatballs that we will actually bake up in the oven using our air fryer setting, so they'll cook up pretty fast. And I will say this is a meal that you can definitely whip up pretty quickly. Okay, let's get our pork in here. So I have 1 pound of ground pork, and we're going to add all in there. And we're going to go through, and with that panade, we're just going to mix it through all of that ground pork, and until we have this just nice herby blend everywhere. And I just honestly, the way my technique is, I'm just squeezing it through my fingers. This is going to allow it to get mixed up really well, break it up so that you don't have any just big chunks of pork. And again, you can also use ground chicken for this, or ground turkey. Now, I find ground chicken is a little bit nicer than ground turkey because turkey is a bit of a drier meat. Here we go. So, looks like we've got a good base for our meatball here. And you just want to make sure everything gets mixed up well. And now what I'm going to do, slide my cutting board back. I've got my little baking sheet here, and we're going to roll out our meatballs for it to bake up. I'm not going to make them super huge, but just like a good kind of gumball sized meatball. And just do a light roll on it. it's going to be a little bit sticky, but it should be able to be rolled well enough and hold its form. These are going to be really tender and juicy meatballs. They're not going to dry out as long as you don't overcook them. And they're going to pair really well with we're going to do like a stir fried broccoli and green onions and a nice kind of miso teriyaki sauce, which will be delicious. And then we'll throw our fried rice in there, or I'll throw our rice in there, and then we'll fry up some eggs to have over the top of it as well. So kind of like a deconstructed fried rice. Here we go. And I will say 1 pound of ground pork makes a good amount of meatballs. You know, especially because you are adding more base into it. We've got the slice of bread and the egg, and then the cut up green onions and all of our herbs. So a little goes a long way. Okay, we're almost done here. And then our little treat we're gonna make today is our Rice Krispie treats. That way I can put them in my kids' lunches. I'm gonna add a little bit of Halloween sprinkles on them just to make them a little bit more fun. The hummingbird muffins yesterday were such a hit. I made 18 of them when I baked up the second part of it, and we're down to 4. So definitely a huge hit with the kids. Teddy ate like 3 of them last night, and I was like, okay, buddy, we got to cut you off. You can't just eat all muffins. Here we go. And this should be good enough to make our last one. So let me just slide these. I'm going to go give my hands a quick rinse. And then we'll pop these in the air fryer or oven at the air fryer setting. Okay, so I do have my air fryer setting set to 425 on my oven. If your oven doesn't have an air fryer setting, you can definitely use the convection bake at 425 or a traditional bake at like 450. And these are only going to need like 10 minutes to cook up when you're using the air fryer because it really rotates that heat around. So let me set my timer because you don't want them to get overcooked because when you overcook a meatball, it really dries out. So you want to leave them perfect so that they're still moist and juicy in there. Okay, let's get our broccoli going up, and then we're going to kind of make our marinade to kind of cook our broccoli in. But we're going to start sauteing the greener parts of my green onions. We'll throw in the darker green parts at the very end to keep that fresh flavor, but let's get the paler green parts and the white parts. That way they can cook off some of that more astringent flavor they have. And we're going to add in, I want to say, I'll do a little bit more. It's a big pan. Like 2 teaspoons of olive oil, if even. I'm going to turn it up. We'll start sauteing these green onions. Then we'll add in a little bit of garlic, and then we'll put in our broccoli, and then we're going to make a lovely marinade. And then we'll start on our delicious Rice Krispies. So I'm just going to kind of break apart my broccoli so that I don't have any massive chunks of it. Sometimes, you get them and they're pretty big, but I want to chop them up so that it's easier to eat. But not too much, because if you chop up broccoli too much, then all of the little leaves, I should say, the little florets parts, but they're the little buds on them will fall off. I'm going to take off most of my stalk of the broccoli because while I do love the broccoli stalk, it will be a bit overpowering in this dish and be harder to cook up. Here. Kind of just break them apart naturally. And we'll take these. So we'll have a good amount of broccoli in this dish. And I just love broccoli with Asian flavors, that teriyaki, soy sauce. It's just so good. Beef and broccoli is one of my favorite, when you go to one of those Chinese buffets, I love their beef and broccoli. Okay, we just about have all of our broccoli prepped up here. Okay, so we'll put that to the side. We'll toss those in just a little bit. And let me get some tongs so we can start tossing our green onions here. And then while we're gonna make our marinade, but let's get our butter melting for our Rice Krispies. Now, my Rice Krispie recipe is similar to the one that you find on the box, but there's two main differences. Mine has more marshmallow and more butter to give you a more creamy, delicious Rice Krispie, not a dry one. I don't like dry Rice Krispies. I like them to get that gooey marshmallow on every bite, but it won't be so sticky that you can't eat it. So we're going to melt the butter in here. I'm going to just have it over like a medium low heat over like a 3 or 4. And once that's melted, we'll throw in our marshmallows. We'll melt those and then we'll throw in our Rice Krispies. But while we're waiting, let's make the base for our kind of marinade for all of this. So we've got, let me get a spoon for my miso and my garlic. Okay, we're gonna start, because this is gonna be a miso teriyaki. We're gonna start with some miso paste at the bottom. I'm gonna just put in about like a half a tablespoon of miso paste. It has this nice like salty flavor to it, and it just really brings out some of those things. If you don't have it, it's not a big deal, but it is lovely. We're going to add in about a tablespoon of soy sauce, a tablespoon of coconut aminos. We're kind of doing equal parts there. And then I'm going to do a half a teaspoon or a half a tablespoon, so a teaspoon and a half of mirin, which is a rice wine, which will have a little bit of a sweetness to it and a little bit of tang, but not like a, a vinegar base there. And let's mix. We're going to add in about a half a teaspoon of dried ginger. If you're going to have ginger paste, you could add up to a teaspoon. But don't go too heavy on the dried because it does have a bit of that sting to it, and has just a lot of heat, I find. We're going to add in about a teaspoon of garlic into our there. And then since our onions are kind of cooking up here, I'm going to add in about a teaspoon over here. So you'll get kind of the garlic twice. That's why you don't want to go too heavy in the marinade. I do like the crisped up garlic to add flavor to the broccoli as well. So we're going to give this a quick stir, and we'll let that kind of crisp up just a little bit. Oop. Lost a little butter here. That's okay. Just kind of putting it around so it kind of melts evenly. You don't want to put your marshmallows in if you're going to do it over the stovetop method until your butter's melted all the way, so that it doesn't like stick or burn to the bottom of your pan. Now I'm just going to take a spoon here and try to just kind of mash up that miso paste to kind of thin it out, to dilute it. Here we go. Perfect. And then we're going to add in, I'm going to start with about a tablespoon of my Japanese barbecue sauce, which is not a barbecue sauce. It's just like a sweetened teriyaki or sweetened soy sauce, and I love it because it's just so delicious. I like to drizzle it over my food. And then we're going to add just a little bit of sweetness, not too much, but this will help balance out the soy sauce. We want about a tablespoon of brown sugar. And you could also use honey too if you want, although I find honey makes your marinade a little bit more liquidy. But if you like that honey flavor profile, it will definitely work. Okay. Beautiful. Let's add our broccoli in now. And I'm going to turn this down nice and low. We're going to kind of get a nice saute up on the broccoli first. And then I'll pour in some of our marinade. But I'm not going to pour it all in at one time.
Marla's been pretty good.
Oh, well, thank you, Marla. We appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to make sure I coat it up with all of that. Oh, and you know what I forgot, which is one of my key ingredients? I was like, oh, I need a little bit of oil. Sesame oil. So I'm going to grab my sesame oil out of here. I just got to find, there it is, right at the back. Sesame oil is lovely. Just don't use too much of it or it's going to have a really strong flavor. So I'm going to add about, a teaspoon here and then a little drizzle here. So most probably use like a teaspoon and a half of it. Don't use straight up all sesame oil or it's going to have a really earthy, nutty taste to it. But it is great to mix with another oil. So I mixed it kind of with the olive oil in here. And that kind of gives you just this really lovely flavor to it. Okay. We're going to just let these kind of cook up just a little bit. I don't want to add my marinade in too soon because I don't want it to reduce down super fast. But let's get our butter here and take a spatula. And perfect. This should be just about. I've got a big pan here. Perfect. So this should be good. We can add in our marshmallows now. I'm going to add in my big marshmallows first, then my mini ones. You can use either big or mini. Mini ones melt a little bit faster, which can work out well, but I just had my big ones here today. So we've got a full bag of the big ones, and then I've got a half of a bag because these are like the really big. These aren't the normal size bags. So normally when I'm making mine, I use like 2 of the regular size bags of marshmallows for our Rice Krispies. And then I add in 9 cups of rice or of the actual cereal. But these were the big ones, so I'll do a half this. And this will give us just a nice little sweet treat to go with our teriyaki bowls. We've got our pork meatballs, our teriyaki pork meatballs cooking up in the oven right now. Let's get all of this. This always happens when you don't use all of your marshmallows at one time. They stick together. Okay. I'm going to let these kind of start to cook on low and melt. Make sure you coat them up with that butter really nice. And that way they will get all ooey and gooey and delicious. Now, if you like a subtle vanilla flavor, you can add about a teaspoon of vanilla into your things, but I never do. I like just the straight up butter and marshmallow flavor. Okay, let's go grab those meatballs out of the oven. I'm going to turn this guy down to low. And while we're waiting, let's first give a little drizzle. And let's check our meatballs. Okay, they are looking done. The best way to check is a meatball is if you touch it and if it feels firm, like your finger doesn't sink in, then you know it's cooked all the way through. I find 10 minutes on the air fryer for about, a gumball ping pong sized, meatball cooks through perfectly. These are pork, which means they're going to be paler in color, same as if you were to use ground chicken or turkey. I would not recommend using like ground beef or lamb for this because those flavors just wouldn't work well with the teriyaki, flavors. Okay. Beautiful. I'm going to add in my sauce now. We added in a little bit. I'm going to not put all of it in because I'm going to reserve some for when we add in our rice. But I want it to get nice and kind of coat up our broccoli, and we'll let these kind of do a steam cook. And then we're going to throw in our green onions, and then I have some frozen sticky rice that I've de-thawed that we'll put in here, so it will be kind of like a broccoli stir fry almost.
Yeah, which was that teriyaki sauce you threw in?
It was kind of like it. It was my homemade version of it, and I used, soy sauce, Japanese barbecue sauce, ginger, miso paste, some brown sugar, some mirin, and sesame oil to kind of get all of my flavors for it. And coconut aminos. So sort of, but it's homemade. Oh, and garlic. Okay, let's get these guys melting up. Once they're all melted into one kind of big fluffy paste, that's when we'll know that we're ready to add in our Rice Krispies. You just don't want to like forget about it, but don't put them in until they're melted. The nice thing about doing it on over the stove instead of like there's like a way you can do it in the microwave, is this pan stays hot so that it mixes and coats your Rice Krispies really nicely so that they don't get like harden up before you've got them completely mixed. And it's really easy to clean because all you do is you just put your in the sink and let it sit in water for like 5 minutes, and the marshmallow completely dissolves away. Okay, so we're gonna throw in my green onions here. We'll let them have kind of a quick saute up. There we go. We're gonna let this broccoli kind of sit and steam and with those green onions for a second. And then we're gonna throw in our sticky rice for this. And then we'll fry up some eggs to go on top of our bowls, because I just kind of love the fried egg over rice. It's just so delicious.
You have a question, is that a hex-clad pan?
It is. So this is the HexClad 12-inch like frying pan. Absolutely love it. I've had mine for 2 years now. I will say the pluses that I like is it has been indestructible. I haven't scratched it, and it's really easy to clean, which is a kind of a bonus for me because everything just kind of slides off of it when you're cleaning. So that's nice. So I do highly recommend it. I do have it in my Amazon storefront for those who are interested, because it's one that I do recommend. I like it a lot. Okay, ours, you're getting there. Again, I will say you can use both big and mini marshmallows for making your Rice Krispies, but the mini melt faster. Okay, our broccoli looks like it's, got a nice kind of vibrant green color on it, which means it's going to be like a tenderness to it, but not mushy. So we're going to add in, and I love this stuff, so you don't have to make your own rice. This is like sticky rice that you buy in the freezer section at the grocery store, and it is the best rice ever. But I'm going to use this in here for it. I did defrost it, so it's not frozen right now, but we're going to mix it in. It's going to suck up some of that marinade that we already have in there, and then we're going to sprinkle a little bit more on, and then I'll get a little pan out here in just a second to start frying up some eggs for it. But again, I'm going to break it up, and it's kind of like a broccoli stir fry here with the green onions and there. So we're going to just kind of soak it up with that marinade, and then we'll add a little bit more if we need it. I'm going to turn it up now since I've got my rice into a slightly higher temperature to cook off any residual liquid. Now, if you do ever make fried rice at home, this is also great for fried rice because, with fried rice, it's best to use day-old rice or rice that's already been pre-cooked. You don't want to use it when it's right cooked because it has too much moisture in it, which will give you a mushy fried rice. Okay, I'm making sure I just break up all of my clumps of rice here. And now we're just going to let it kind of steam out. And then I'm going to actually taste it, see if I want to add any more marinade or not, because it actually looks like it has enough in here. And we'll see if we want to add anything else. Delicious. Okay, looks like these are just about ready. I'm going to turn it down a little bit. It's a little high. And we're going to just mix this up nice. And then I'm going to grab out my small frying pan, and we are going to start frying up our eggs because we are almost done with everything. Because Rice Krispies, once the marshmallows are melted, it is super easy. Okay. Let me grab my frying pan out. I'll put it on our back burner here. Get that nice and hot. I'm going to put a little pat of butter in. And once that butter is melted and that pan is hot, we'll crack in our eggs for our things, and then we'll assemble our bowls. Okay. This is just about melted. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to turn off the heat to my marshmallow fluff here. And now we're going to add in 9 cups of Rice Krispies. This is where you got to be careful. Don't just dump in a box of Rice Krispies. It's not the right ratio. You can do 9. It don't have to be perfectly filled, but this kind of works for it. I've got my husband counting for me because if I try to count this, it won't work out. Okay. So 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, let's give this a nice stir, coat it up in our marshmallow goop, and then we'll press it into our mold, press it down with some parchment paper, and sprinkle some Halloween sprinkles over the top, just to give it a little bit of a fun, little fun thing. Okay. And mix it all the way around. But you see how we just have this really delicious kind of, there's goo on all of it, and that's what I love. You've got this marshmallow goop. Now, with Rice Krispie treats, they do have to cool down completely before you try to eat them, or what will happen is you're going to have like a gooey, sticky mess. Okay, this is perfect. I'm going to turn it down nice and low.
You have a question? Could you go over the ratios for the marshmallow, butter?
Yes. So I typically use 2 of the regular size bags of marshmallows, the mini ones, but you know how you can get like the big bag, there's the regular, so the standard size, with 1 stick of butter. So you melt that butter, you add those in, and then 9 cups of Rice Krispies, and makes the best. They're gooey, but firm at the same time. Well, before we do that, let's get our eggs going because my butter is nice and melted here. Just going to swirl it around my whole pan. I've got my rice off. That way these can cook up while we're finishing up our Rice Krispies, and then we can serve up lunch. Apparently I don't, there we go. That one did not want to crack for me. So I'm going to fry up our eggs, and I'll do them over easy because that's what I really like for this. And slide that right over there. That way it'll be easier for me to cut apart. Okay, I'm going to remove this off because it's nice and hot and I don't want it to continue cooking out the bottom for it. But that is our kind of our broccoli teriyaki rice. And then we'll put the fried egg over it. So like think about a deconstructed broccoli or rice. And now, before we do this, this is the trick to getting your Rice Krispies to come out easily. Just spray it down with a little bit of cooking spray, and that way when you want to take it out and cut it into the bars, it will just slide right out of the pan. We're going to add this in here now and scoop it. There we go. And this is the nice thing, because this pan stays nice and hot, it's really easy to scoop all of this stuff out because that marshmallow hasn't cooled or set. Except the pan is really heavy. Okay. This is that 6-quart saute pan from Alclad. This is what I use. This is my Rice Krispie making pan. It's also when I make pasta because it's great for pasta, or when I make a large batch of fried rice. Okay. We've got this in here. I'm going to kind of spread it out. Get all of this good stuff off my spatula before we press it down. And then, do not use wax paper. Use parchment paper to press this down. And this is the key to making sure your bar will hold together. Because if you don't press it down firmly, it will be too fluffy. And then when you try to cut it, it will fall apart. So you've got to push all of those air gaps out. And trust me, these are going to taste just like your grandmother's. I always remember growing up, I would visit my step-grandparents in Minneapolis, and she would always make me homemade Rice Krispie treats. And Still reminds me every time I eat one. It just always makes me think of her. Okay. So we're going to push it down. We're going to slide it off before it has a chance to stick on there too much. And then we're going to add in our Halloween sprinkles to give it just, this is going to make my kids happy. Little pumpkins and ghosts and bats. And you want to do it while it's still hot. I don't mix it into my Rice Krispies because I feel like it adds too much of a crunch. We're going to put our parchment paper right back on. Give it a push down so that they are secure in the top of it. And there we go. And there are our beautiful Halloween Rice Krispies treats that will be delicious, gooey, and fabulous. Let's get our eggs flipped over, and then we'll be ready to serve up our lunch. Okay, so I like a nice egg over easy, which means you fry it, and then you flip it over, and then we're going to fry it a little bit on the other side. It does not need long to fry on the other side, like 30 seconds. Don't overcook it, or it will cook your egg all the way through. There we go. But this will help that kind of sliminess of it get cooked all the way through. Beautiful. Perfect. So I'm going to turn off the heat to it so that it doesn't overcook. And I'm going to grab a bowl because guess what? It's time to serve up. Okay, let's see. Let me grab, we'll do it right here, but I'll grab this out of the way because we'll throw, a meatball is missing, and you know who's eating it? The cameraman is got an awfully interesting chewing pattern right now. Okay, let's get our bowl served up here. And I got to make sure because we're going to drizzle it with some of our Japanese barbecue sauce. So we're going to start by putting down a nice base layer of our broccoli kind of fried rice, in the sense, in a teriyaki sauce. So it has lots of flavor in it. And then, of course, those nice chunks of broccoli in there. And then we're going to put on our teriyaki meatballs. This is made with ground pork, green onions, and our delicious kind of onion powder. We're going to put our 2 fried eggs over it, and then you got to make sure you split them so that their ooze falls out. And then you're going to drizzle everything with a little bit of Japanese barbecue sauce for that little extra teriyaki tang, but it will bring all of those flavors together, and it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And let's not forget our Halloween Rice Krispie treats, which is just our basic Rice Krispie treats sprinkled with Halloween sprinkles. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page, so if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to that link, search for what we made. So we've got our teriyaki meatball and broccoli rice bowls with fried eggs and our Halloween Rice Krispie treats. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. I've got my hex-clad pans in there, my baking sheets, my knives, my cutting board, all the different things that I use in my kitchen I have in there in case you're interested. But again, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe.